All right. Hello? Yeah, okay. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you are here to talk to any of the bills, to testify on them, we have sign-up sheets up front. Make sure to sign up on those. We'll be hearing today House Bill 846, 1221, and 1122. We've got a couple bill sponsors we're waiting on. We're going to text them right now, see if they're on their way, and then we'll get started in about 3 minutes. So hold tight. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the House Education Policy Subcommittee. So if you're here for Judy, you're in the wrong room. We are excited to have you all here today. We are going to start with something I enjoy doing first is, do we have any teachers in the audience? Stand up so you can be given recognition. I believe it's Page Day at the Page, and not pages like the pages, but pages like the pages. Do we have any students in the audience? I don't think. There he is. All right, hand of applause. All right, with that, Representative Evans, would you mind opening us in prayer?
Thank you.
Stop hitting your button.
Right. Dear Creator God, thank you so much for this day and this time to be together. Please help us listen and learn and discern your will in the work we do to improve the lives of all Georgians. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Evans. And thank you to those in the audience for bearing with us. It's starting to get that time, crunch time, and so appreciate your flexibility in terms of meeting time, location, and all that fun stuff. With that, I'm going to welcome to the podium Chairman Leverett to present to us, if I can find it here. You steal my bill? Yeah, House Bill 846.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that the committee has reviewed before, but we do have a substitute that made a few changes from the original bill as filed. And I also have the ones and twos, which I forgot to give to you earlier, but I do have them today. So if you'll grab me and tackle me before I head out, I'll be sure to get those to you. We basically just tried to make it where school systems with the larger systems wouldn't have to go back and do this with every employee. And this is the one that requires a notice with regard to Social Security and whether Social Security is being withheld and what sort of plans and options the employees have. Initially, the bill would require every employee be given that notice regardless of their date of hire. This tries to make it more prospective. As systems hire, they would provide that notice and then do it every 5 years after that, just to keep sort of remind people and keep them up. I guess if they're like me and don't always turn back to good financial planning frequently, this would just be a reminder to them and make sure our employees are fully advised and informed as to what's happening with respect to Social Security and other kind of retirement options they have. So that's basically the change. I think we had a generally favorable reception. I know a number of organizations, to my surprise, took note in the bill and were interested in it. The genesis of it was just a member of the Wilkes and Lincoln Retired Educators Association who expressed some concerns about just being aware while she was an employee, and so we've tried to sort of address that issue in a way that is not overly burdensome on the school systems.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that explanation and the changes there. It looks like the primary change is line 25 there. I believe that originally it was once every year. Now we've moved it out to every 5 years, which I think is more reasonable.
Yes, sir. And on line 15, beginning July 1, 24 and continuing thereafter, each school system shall, et cetera. I don't believe that was in the original either.
Perfect. With that, I'll take questions as they appear. Number 16 to my right, Representative Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Leverett, for this bill. Part of a school system in the past where we didn't take out Social Security benefits, and a lot of times there were confusion about what happens if you leave or what happens when you retire. So I assume this bill is going to tighten all that up, especially the retirees.
That's the goal, just by providing some notice so they're aware.
Perfect.
Thank you for the question.
Down here to my right, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. And can you please just remind us one more time, because if the school system's not taking out Social Security, they're providing what should be Social Security, or the equivalent of that in their retirement plan, is that correct?
That's my understanding, but I think the bigger issue is the paycheck might be a little bigger, but then you're not eligible for Social Security. Mm-hmm. And I think that was what my constituent learned to her chagrin when she assumed she would be. Mm-hmm. But I think your understanding, as I understand it, that is correct. But mm-hmm. I stand to be corrected if my understanding of Social Security and retirement benefits is mistaken.
Right, and I think, and just for the committee, I would say what my understanding is, like I had a teacher come to me whose husband, she wasn't eligible to get his Social Security benefits because her school system had not been collecting Social Security. So this is a good bill for transparency, definitely.
Thank you. That's the goal here. It's not to mandate that school systems do or not do anything with respect to participation, but just to require that they do provide that level of transparency to their employees about what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Not seeing any other questions. Do I have we actually do have someone to speak to the bill, if Lisa Morgan would come up to the podium to say a word about the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I am Lisa Morgan. I am a kindergarten teacher and the current president of the Georgia Association of Educators. And I want to thank Representative Leverett for bringing this bill. If you are not aware, there are over 70 school systems in our state who do not take out Social Security. And employees sometimes forget about that. They're hired. And so this bill will provide some of that nudging and that reminder to employees that they need to be thinking about what is going to happen when they retire. And perhaps they will also be able to understand some of those things, like I pay into Social Security working my second job, because many educators have second jobs to make ends meet, and that even though I'm qualified, I'm not going to get that Social Security, or my spouse passes away, and because I have my teacher retirement, I am not going to be able to get their Social Security. So we appreciate this so that our employees can have a little, hopefully, better understanding, and we appreciate the continuation. The one thing I would ask, if we could add something, would be not only upon hire and every 5 years. I would like it a little bit more often, but 5 years is a great start. But also when they leave the system. Typically, systems are going to have some kind of exit interview or something that they're going to provide to employees as they leave the system, to once again say, remember, you didn't pay Social Security here. Use that in your planning going forward. But we truly appreciate this and hope that you will support this here and in the full committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll go to my left with either a question or a motion.
Thank you for your comments and also for this bill. And at the due time, I would like to make a motion for due pass.
That would be the appropriate time. Do I hear a second to the motion? I have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Number 2 down front, Representative Glaze.
Thank you so much for bringing the bill. I came from retirement and went to education, so it does mean a lot when our teachers, our staff, know exactly what they're going to get at retirement. So I do like the fact that there was a suggestion, and would you be open to a friendly amendment that's adding to the end, if someone leaves the school system, that they're given this information.
I couldn't see. Did he shake his head yes? Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walker, your mic is live.
The committee may wish to consider an amendment on line 16 that would replace line 16 with the following: hiring a new employee or separating an existing employee, comma, provide such employee the following.
Mr. Chairman in the audience, again, you got a poll blocking your way.
So I could read that language again. So 16 would be replaced with the following language.
Thank you. Actually, if you could go to just to the live feed, can you?
Would we, just a parliamentary inquiry, if I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, would we also want to make a similar change on line 25? Or do you feel it necessary?
Well, if beginning the amendment that I read out would essentially say beginning July 1, 2024 and moving forward, everyone who separates from employee would be given this notice.
Okay, all right.
So rather than that condition being only on new hires, it would be new hires and separating employees.
Okay.
So we currently have a motion for an amendment. We've heard the amendment. Do I hear a second? Second. All right. Question down front, number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we make that change on line 15 and 16 versus at the end, is there a reason we would tell a separating employee that they're eligible to participate in a certain plan? Or are we just trying to let them know what happened afterwards? Because they're not going to be eligible to participate in the plan, so.
Just making them aware they're not eligible.
Okay. Okay.
I can also propose a different amendment, but that'll take some time if you'd like me to.
No, I don't want to hold it up. I'm just curious. So.
Well, let's do this. We have a motion to amend on the table. We've had some discussion on it. We're going to go ahead and vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment as proposed, Representative Glaze, signal by saying aye. Anyone against, say nay. All right, it's amended. We're still in the discussion on the underlying bill. Any additional questions on the bill itself? All right, all in favor of the motion do pass, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. In light of the amendment, I'm assuming you do not need the 1s and 2s that I have with me. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
All right, with that, I'm going to cede the chair to Madam Chair to my left here. Long-standing joke in education.
Before we get started, I'm going to make sure that Chairman Irwin is aware that I continue to have his back as the Madam Chair Lady here, Hilton, presents his bill. We'd like to welcome you here. This has been going since last
Too
year,
long.
I believe. Yep.
Too long.
But anyway, if you would, go ahead and present your bill.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I appreciate you guys. I am bringing House Bill 1122. I'll be reading from LC 491654. So House Bill 1122 accomplishes three things in regards to our charter schools. It really makes three sort of cleanup items. The first one is, and this is in Section 1, I'm going to direct your attention to lines 84 really down to 95. So this section addresses an inequity in how superintendents are allocated to charter schools who are operating as LEAs and how principals are allocated to charter schools serving multiple grade band levels. So what we're trying to do here is provide some additional funding resources for our charter schools who currently have principals and superintendents serving multiple grade bands. We have put in, there will be a small fiscal impact. We have requested that note. I've got some folks who will testify to what they anticipate that will be, but it's fairly de minimis in regards to the total dollar amount. I'll then direct your attention to the second change that the bill does. This is further down in Section 2 and 3, lines 128. So currently, full-time teachers and professionals at these schools, their children can also attend. We don't have an exception to those teachers who are there on a part-time basis. And so that was the idea, not only from a workforce recruitment standpoint, but from a equity or fairness standpoint, that these folks are working here. Their children ought to be able to attend as well. Now, as we were working the bill, we got some excellent feedback from those in the community who said, you know, Scott, we want to be careful, right? If we start letting part-time students or part-time parents have their students attend, we don't want folks cutting the line, gaming the system. For instance, somebody does a hour PE class, they're technically part-time. Should their student jump the line to be able to go to that charter school? I think it's a fair piece of feedback. So I'll open it up to this committee's will, but would suggest an amendment that reads to the effect that a part-time teacher working 20 hours or more would qualify for this exception. Again, I'll defer to the will of the committee, but I think that should hopefully be a reasonable solution that makes folks happy. And then finally, Section 4, And I'll direct your attention to the line. Yeah, section 4 there, line 149. This addresses a conflict of interest regarding those who may serve on a state charter school governing board, and cleans that up. So with that, I will pause for any questions the committee might have, and then I will welcome up to the mic here with me Bonnie Holliday, who will correct or address anything I may have gotten wrong.
Okay. Is there any discussions from the committee? We have one. Floor Leader Wade.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for bringing the bill. Just a quick question. I think a lot of times in those positions, a lot of times school systems will have 51% and 49%. I don't know if it's done based on hours. I completely understand your goal. That might be just kind of continuing on the same tradition of if it's a 51% employee versus a 49% employee. So however that language needs to work, I think that might be worth considering.
I bring 100% every day, so I don't know. Yeah.
Representative Evans.
Yes, so could you just explain to us just the impetus for the bill? Like what were the issue? What was the issue with charter schools and why we need this change?
Yep. I'll bring up a practitioner here who can tell you kind of what they're seeing in the field. But again, really three things: the principals, the conflict of interest, and then the part-time folks. So the principals, like I said, underfunded. So we have principals who are covering. Imagine you had a principal at your local school who was covering elementary, middle, and high. We need to those are vastly different communities. And so it'd be nice to have a principal for each grade band level there. The part-time worker standpoint, we've got charter schools who are working hard. They're trying to recruit talent to their schools. If Miss Smith has to go teach part-time but drop her kid off, 20, 30 minutes down the road, that creates some hardships for her. So I think in practice, that's the struggle she's seeing there. And then again, on who may serve on state charter school governing board and then local charter schools, you want to clean up that conflict of interest there.
Could you just explain that? What was the conflict of interest there on line
Bonnie,
153?
step in.
I'm Bonnie Holliday, the Chief Strategy Officer at the Georgia Charter Schools Association. Representative Evans, the conflict of interest, this actually came as a request from the State Charter Schools Commission, and the conflict of interest, the current law says no school district employee may serve on a state charter school governing board. And that became an issue over the last couple of years because there were instances where they had really they had teachers at locally approved charter schools or local traditional high schools that were sort of curriculum experts that state charter schools outside of the school's attendance zone, but near enough where they could serve. They wanted that individual to come and help them and leverage their expertise on behalf of the school, but they were prohibited in law from serving. And so the conflict of interest clarification is that only executive level district employees are prohibited from serving on a state charter board because the goal there is to prevent, this would never happen, but the goal there has always been, the reason this is in the law is to prevent a superintendent or a principal from submarining a state charter school, with any malintent. Again, that would never happen, but laws are in place to prevent those kinds of things. But a teacher would be allowed to serve.
Okay, thank you.
And to your earlier question about the allocation of principals, just as an example, the way principals are currently allocated and funded is based on school code. And when we started doing things that way, it was before we had charter schools. And the vast majority of charter schools serve multiple grade bands under a single school code. And so I don't think there was an intent to withhold principals from charter schools, but we just haven't evolved the allocation processes in accordance with the way charter schools serve kids. And so I'll give you the most egregious example. We have one state charter school. It's Georgia Cyber Academy. They serve almost 13,000 kids, and they operate as an LEA. they pull one principal. No superintendent and one principal. And so that's larger than a lot of school districts in Georgia. So this bill would change that, so they get an elementary, a middle, and a high school principal and a superintendent. But most schools would pull just an additional principal.
Okay, is there any more discussion from the committee? Okay. Representative Glaze.
So I would, thank you so much for bringing the bill. I would ask you, would you speak to the part-time? And would
Yes.
hours be more, be better to say 20 hours or more?
You know, I'll look at Ledge Council for that. I'm not sure. The recommendation is a good one. The intent here is not to game anything. It's to allow folks to incentivize the hiring and retention of part-time employees for music, art, things that you might not have a full-time position for. But in terms, there's not a lot of guidance in the law or rules or regs around what constitutes minimum full-time employment or maximum full-time employment. And so there are some things on the Secretary of State's website that had 20 hours, which is why we suggested that. But in terms of what you think is best, I would defer to the Legislative Council.
I would recommend including a reference to 20 hours per week, just because that's objective, easily measurable, and can be applied. So even for those school districts who may operate on a percentage basis, that would be an easy conversion for them to make. So I've got proposed language at the appropriate time.
Where would you like for that proposed language to be?
On line 130, after the word employee, I would recommend inserting who works for at least 20 hours per school week on average, measured monthly.
I think somebody on the committee ought to
Yeah.
make that motion if they feel led. Oh, well, we need a motion on the
Bill.
bill.
Yeah, so
We've still got a lot of discussion here before we do that.
yeah, we're not quite there yet, so hold on just a minute. Okay.
Can't take the chair out of the chairman.
I had a question regarding the hours and if it would affect a certain population. Let's say coaches, and you're a football coach and you're working, 50 hours a week for almost volunteer pay because you're coaching football and you're getting paid for that charter school to do it. But you're not coaching basketball or track, where you're not coaching a winter sport or spring sport. Would that person still be eligible then under the new guidelines? They may have reached a 20-hour max, 20 hours a week expectation, because in football you're coaching how many hours or whatever sport you want to say, softball. But would that eliminate those folks from this part-timers? It could be, but wait, if they change that amendment, it would change to, you have to work minimally 20 hours per week. And if you're just hired in the fall and you're not working the winter or spring, but you put in 10 hours in the fall, then that's not.
I'll say something to that, and we can clarify this from Legislative Council. Community coaches are not listed as part-time employees. They're community coaches. So in some instances, sometimes stipends or something's handled in various methods, but I don't think that this would apply to a coach that's extracurricular. You want to confirm that?
That would be a policy call whether you wanted to include. Yeah, it would be a policy decision whether you want to include community coaches, but I agree. That type of position you're describing is not something that would traditionally be considered an employee of the school system.
Yeah, I think it would be a part-time employee on the employment roster
Okay.
of the school, yeah. Because at some point, you're going to need to make a decision, when does the kid qualify then to attend that school? Yeah.
Okay, I have two more questions. Okay, one. We're down to one. How about that? Okay.
We're sharing.
Oh, you're sharing. Okay, well, whoever this would be, Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ballard.
We're twins. Local education agency on line 22. When we define that, just a clarification question, is that the current definition in code, or is that some additions? That's for Ledge Council, I guess.
It is a current definition.
Even the part where it says completion schools, subject to provisions of that, that's all in code?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or the 20-2-167.1.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Floor Leader Wade.
At the appropriate time, Chairman.
Okay, now's the appropriate time.
I'd like to make a motion do pass.
Okay, so we have a motion do pass. Now we need to do the amendment. Now, any further discussion on the amendment?
Well, we need a motion for the amendment.
Okay, my apologies. We would like a motion for the amendment.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the motion. Add on line, I guess, where is it? 130. And would you read what we're adding?
Inserting after the word employee on line 130, who works for at least 20 hours per school week on average, measured monthly.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a second on the amendment?
Second.
Okay, having received the second, all those in favor of the amendment passing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Amendment carries. Now the same will be for the bill itself. Anyone that, okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. All right, bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, yeah, I'll make note of that. All right, thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will now hear House Bill 1221, brought to us by Chairman Tyler Paul Smith. Mr. Chairman, we are reading from LC 491695,
Yes, sir.
and I will
That's
hand
my
the
understanding.
mic over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I know who stole Michael Walker from us over there, so I'm very envious. But anyhow, thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you today House Bill 1221, and basically what does this bill do? This allows opportunity for out-of-district enrollment under following conditions. A student applies to enroll in another school system, and the new school system agrees to enroll that student. If both the school and the student agree, the state QBE funds would follow that child to the enrolling district. Beginning in the 2026-27 academic year, enrolling districts that charge tuition would only charge an amount equal to their average local revenue per student. If the enrolling district charges tuition to a student whose residency school is underperforming, that's the bottom 25% on state accountability test, the residency district is required to pay half of that tuition cost. That would be from your local cost, and I'll kind of give you a little math figure to get your head around that. I always need that myself, being a lawyer and whatnot. But anyways, who does this help? It creates additional public options for all Georgia public school students and open the door for any school district willing to serve an out-of-district student. Why it matters. Currently, a child's district of residency can hold the family hostage and refuse to allow out-of-district enrollment. This denies families the opportunity to find the public school that best fits their child's needs. How it protects the local school district's funding. No money would actually be taken away from the residency school district. This is only the state funds that are transferred. This bill should actually increase per-student spending in resident districts because they will maintain all local funding and sparsity grants while serving fewer students. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, just on a personal note, I was one of those out-of-district students that lived in the unincorporated area of the county, and we had to pay tuition to go to the city school. I'm a proud fourth-generation Bremen Blue Devil on my mother's side. That means we've been going there basically since it was called Bremen High School. My mother also had to pay tuition when she was going to school there as well. So this is a personal situation for me. Thankfully, our county schools have increased tremendously in their student achievement since I was in school. But as a young student growing up, I can remember that the way we paid that tuition was our calving season. We would sell calves right in time to make our tuition payments. Tuition usually goes up just about every year too. It is a cash cow that I understand why school districts do that and the added strain that it would have, but we hope with House Bill 1221 that this would allow for an equitable transition to make sure that all parties benefit while focusing on the student first and foremost. And just so y'all know, I knew I'd promised you a math problem, so just follow along with me. Let's say that you've got local monies. That's $3,700 or so, some odd dollars. As far as how this tuition would work, half of that money that the local district would get would go from the school with that student, and then the student would actually have to come up with half of that money themselves. So it'd be like $1,900 in tuition money. That's a little bit more than we used to pay when I graduated from the city school, but that's basically a rough estimate as to how that math may work, Mr. Chairman. So I'd stand for any questions. I know I'm getting pulled in other directions, but I'm going to stay here as long as I can, and I may have to phone a friend, as I have meticulously avoided coming to this committee, as y'all usually try to avoid my committee most days too.
We're a lot more fun than judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do know your schedule is tight, and we've got several people to testify. So what we'll do is we'll take several questions from the committee, and then after that, if you need to run, you're welcome to do that. The board's already lighting up a little bit. I'll kind of ask my couple questions I had. Walk me through in terms of timing when a parent and a student can decide when they want to switch, and how quickly can they come back? Kind of walk me. Is there anything that speaks to that? Yeah.
So my understanding, we spoke on the floor about this. I understand that there were some potential amendments coming.
Okay.
I know that in the reason and wisdom of this great subcommittee that we could probably find the best time. What had been suggested to me is that we look at either at the first part of a semester or at the end of the year. So the first part of a spring semester, and then maybe at the end of that semester, going into a new school year. I'll defer to this committee and your wisdom. Y'all are much more knowledgeable in these matters, but that was something that was suggested to me, and I'd be fine with that. And I know there probably need to be a provision in there about someone who moves, let's say that they moved from up in Dahlonega all the way to Bainbridge. There may need to be a provision in that as well. What we don't want to see, and what I'm totally open to, is that we don't have somebody that leaves for 10 days and then comes right back. That'll really mess the funding up. So I'm completely open to any amendments that would help us clarify that.
The beauty of being chair is I get to ask multiple questions. On the money piece, again, a child leaves the home district, goes to a new one. The state portion follows. Is there, and I guess the home district theoretically would come out ahead, right? Because they're no longer having to, they keep the local money, they keep the Fed money. They no longer have the student. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yes, I believe the chairman is right on point here. Part of the provisions that I've worked on with the chairman on, as far as trying to see school districts, if we didn't tighten this language up, trying to jack tuition up so much that someone couldn't afford it. You can only sell so many calves every year to send a student to school, but that was a safeguard that we'd gotten with legislative council on, and I appreciate y'all's hard work with that. This is kind of a novice way of drafting it. I know there've been other bills that address this same issue, but we were really careful on that to make sure that we didn't see price gouging in the tuition area.
Very good. I'm going to go question down to my far right here, number 16, with a question.
Representative Hilton, thank you, Chairman Smith, for this. Two things. One, Representative Hilton, you actually asked my question, your second one, what I was going to ask. But I just want to tell Chairman Smith that I love your committee, by the way, and enjoyed going through it and would enjoy going through it again. Your great leadership, of course.
Enjoyed hearing your bill, and come on back anytime.
All right, I will no longer accept any brown nosing of the chairman questions. If you have a bill in judiciary, you are excluded from asking a question right now. Number 15 to my right, floor leader.
Thank you for the bill. My question is just, I guess, some semantics on this. Contemplating the measurement of the bottom 25%, I understand that kind of tracks with some other legislation. What if you're in a situation in which a school system, like how long would that tuition payment be continuing? So I'll give you an example. If you're a school system who is in the 23rd percentile, the student decides to utilize that, they make the transfer, they're going. That school makes improvements, 2 years later, they're now in the 50th percentile. I just want to understand like the tracking of that as far as, do they have to qualify every single year to be an out of district? And for the record, I am very much in favor of allowing parents to move zip codes. We in Dawson County, when I'm a former school board member, we passed a local for K through 5 as a pilot program to allow folks that worked in our community that wanted to bring their kids to our system. And we came up with a local tuition, which was equivalent to basically what the average homeowner in our community paid. So it was about $1,250 a year. That's just what it was when I was on the school board. So it would have been a lot less expensive for you to come to my district when you were in school. But we had to do it only through the K through 5 period of time, and then it would have to be considered when they moved into middle school. So just want to understand kind of the semantics of how it would operationally work.
Sure. And to my friend from Dahlonega, I was pulling for Chase Elliott yesterday, by the way. So I would say this, that I would be open to some clarifying language on that. I would think that, as I would understand it, you would still have the option to go to that out-of-district school. You just still have to pay that tuition money. I don't see why, if you had a district, well, I could think of a few reasons why. I mean, you wouldn't want to necessarily force. I mean, let's say you're in 8th grade, that transition from middle school to high school, I mean, piranha on every corner, so to speak. I mean, I can understand, saw it plenty of times with transfer students that attended a different middle school and now they're in a brand new high school. I think you don't want to limit their option of whether they wanted to stay there and keep on paying tuition due to the network of not only friends that the student may have, but also their teachers. I mean, we see it all the time that I know I'm still close with many of my own educators that I had that thankfully straightened me out.
Perfect. I'm going to ask more questions. I see my friend from GHSA over there. Any athletics concern in terms of counties or systems recruiting?
Well, they probably think I'm trying to be Tom Murphy incarnate. He didn't always get along with GHSA, but I would hope that they'd be friendly to us. I'm always trying to be a friend to them as long as they don't put me over there with schools I shouldn't be playing in, but that's just a joke. But, that's good. That's good. We're turning over a new leaf. All things have passed away, Mr. Chairman, so I'd be glad to hear any concerns they have and would be open to satisfying those as well. Athletics is a huge part. Having played 2 varsity sports myself, it's a very near and dear part of my high school experience as well.
And I'll clarify for the committee, too. I learned this practice, which you're proposing, is currently allowed, but the policy change is that you no longer need permission from the home county to depart, which is the policy change here. Did you have a question? You're live. Representative.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman, for this bill. So I do want to make sure I understand about the fiscal penalties. And first of all, I just wanted to know, is equalization funding affected at all for the local school district?
That would be my understanding. That I know that there was another bill afoot that dealt more with equalization. we tried to stay away from that and deal with just where the state monies were going and how you would measure that tuition. I would defer to some of the experts on that, but we tried to stay out of that as much as we could.
Okay, so thank you. And may I ask, and so I'm a little bit, I just want to understand that about these schools in the lower 25%. And are they, how are they, are they being penalized by having to pay more or something? But I guess I would just say, how would requiring resident school systems with bottom 25% schools to pay tuition, how would that impact the lower wealth districts?
Well, I mean, part of this is with students leaving, I mean, you've clearly got an issue at that school, and so hopefully it would be an incentive for those schools to actually figure out where the problems are within the system and fix those. I would say this, it would probably help those lower 25% schools. You'd have less pupils in the classroom, it'd be a small classroom size, and hopefully they could find a way to start addressing those issues. Like the more time per pupil, I think that would potentially be a good consequence of this. Yes, you may have more state dollars leaving or not coming to that school. However, I think with the lower class sizes, which have shown, studies I believe have shown increased children's learning capabilities, that would be a good thing for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they would use the QBE funding per student.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll see if there's any other questions here. Thanks.
All right, we're going to take two more quick questions down front here. I see number 3 lit up, but I don't see anybody sitting there.
That's me.
Representative Glaze.
Some of them don't light up. Thank you for the bill. I just wanted to ask.
Representative Glaze, hold on. I want folks on the live feed to get it.
Okay.
Go for it. You're lit up, yeah.
So is 2 open now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to ask if you could tell me how protections would be carefully and highly prevented, or at least in cases where kids may be turned down for discriminatory reasons such as their race, their gender, sexual orientation, or any disabilities. How would we ensure that there are protections in this bill that these things would not occur?
Well, I'd be the first one there beating on the door, wanting to demand the answer for why they discriminated on that behalf. I would suggest to the gentlelady this, that you have plenty of laws in place at the state level and federal level that prohibit discrimination in education, and so I think there are already safeguards in place. I would defer to the more knowledgeable lawyer in the education realm that we have with us, and potentially get that answer for you offline. I do know there are protections for those that have disabilities, especially with learning disabilities as well, that you couldn't discriminate on that basis. I think generally the only discriminations I understand that usually come as a matter of disciplinary records. That's usually the time that I see any kind of discrimination occur. Let's say that somebody was in an alternative school at their previous institution, if they were still serving whatever that period of alternative school was, or the probation period, if you will. If they transferred during the pendency of that probation period, they'd still have to be an alternative school at that new school district. So there are some ways that a district that you transfer to can, I guess, I wouldn't want to call it discriminate, but you have to still abide by those same guidelines that you had for, say, probation or disciplinary issues.
Do you mind one more question, please?
Sure.
So on line 45, well, it starts at 43 and it references the lower 25%. But on line 45, it says that the school system would be responsible for 1/2 of the total amount of tuition. But in your example, it basically only stated the state portion. And that seems to help me understand if we're responsible, if the school system is responsible for half of the tuition, and then
Yes,
based on
ma'am.
what you're saying, we don't know the tuition. The
Right.
tuition could change from one system to another, then that seems to be something that is a moving target.
Yes, ma'am. So I would clarify, and I apologize for this. So that earlier figure, I think I threw out a $3,700 figure there earlier. So that would actually, let's say that's a hypothetical FTE formulation that local district gets. That would be where that figure comes from. So half of that figure, you'd have roughly $1,900 from the student as well as that district that would go to the other out-of-district school. That would be how that would operate.
So there could be some differences from school system to school system, the amount that it would cost for a student to attend in a low-wealth school district or a low-tax-based school district. Their funding formula and what they get could be quite lower than a more affluent school district, and there could be some real changes or differences in the amount of money that follow the child, or that could be taken away from a low wealth district and could possibly cause some harm as far as how much money's left in their budget.
I would say this: if there's a concern with the open-endedness that you feel as if is in the legislation, I would be okay to a friendly amendment to curb that. I know we had attempted to prohibit that sort of situation from coming. Without naming names, I can think of several school districts that I'm thinking of in my head that you're referring to. That
Thank you.
I'm open to that.
Okay, let's see if we can do something.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Thank you,
open
sir.
to that. And I know there'll be some testimony on this as well.
Mr. Chairman, we've got 2 more questions. I'm going to tee up.
I'm good.
You wait.
We were just trying to, yes.
Perfect. Thank you for that. To my right here, Floor Leader Wade with a question, or a couple questions.
Hey, just a couple clarifications, and I appreciate that. And I know we're going to have testimony coming up, and I'm going to have to step out myself. But hopefully, if we continue, I'll come back and get to speak with you offline about some more, I guess, granular detail. But one of my questions is in the contemplating when you get the bottom quartile and you've got some local dollars would be following that student to go toward the tuition, correct? I guess from my mind, just looking at it, there's going to be every local community's dollars are different. And even where they're going to be going is going to be different. So I'm just trying to think through kind of like that in like a tabular form, if you will, like this is the local dollars for this district, A, B, C, D, E, whatever, and just understanding that piece. So I don't know how that doesn't touch things like equalization or federal funding if it's a special needs student. I'm also not an expert, so I would have to lean on some of the folks on the budgetary side to clarify that. But have you thought through that, or is that something you're willing to dig into a little more just to make sure that we get it right?
We have thought about that and basically trying to prohibit tuition from being increased dramatically in certain districts. I'm open to any clarifying language. I know that was something we'd tried to accomplish with the preliminary draft, but as everybody knows here, we have to be flexible and open to changing things as we see the need with different, better, well-reasoned individuals with more knowledge in the area may be able to lend to the subject. So I'm completely open to figuring out if we cap that, if we tighten up percentage, however we need to do that to make sure that we get these students the ability to get a better education if that's what they need.
All right, and then one further, if I may, Chairman, just follow up on the if you're a receiving school, what in your what is your intent within the legislation will be their allowable reasons to decline a student to enter in that? I want to just understand what your intent is so that you can make sure that the children and the community and the family that want to move that student there for a reason has every opportunity. But the schools obviously have, the number one thing that jumps out to me is they don't have class space.
Right.
So that's one, but are there others?
I would say this. I know not everybody thinks of certain schools as being full of mathematicians. I wasn't one of those. There may be some that excel in others, but I would say that the intent of this is to limit due to space. I had to go to school, and we had classes in a trailer down there. That was okay. I learned a whole lot in American government in a trailer. There's nothing wrong with learning in a trailer. I know we're trying to move away from that with all the tornadoes that come through especially, but I would say that the anticipated reason for denying a student is lack of space to educate that student or lack of staff. That's my understanding and the intent behind this. If you don't have space or the staff to educate them, I mean, we're just going to bring your numbers down. But hopefully with the money that's coming to that district, with the state money following them, especially, that this would help provide that extra financial supplement to take on that extra student as well.
Perfect. We're going to take one more question down front. Before we do, we've got folks here to testify to the bill. If you'd go ahead and start, maybe I've got Josh Stevens with Paige, and then Stephanie Tanner. You're on deck after this question here. Go ahead, Representative Paris.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman, for the bill. Now, just wondering, is there any criteria within the bill that addresses whether a student is, whether or not they'll be permitted to transfer?
I would think that we have existing law in the books. I mean, disciplinary issues, especially, are ones that come to mind. We got to be careful, I would say, though. I understand your position on it and the question, but I would say that we start to write criteria, and we've got to be careful how those criteria are interpreted. If we try to set forth too many different bullet points of criteria that students must meet. I'll be quite frank with the committee, I was an average student. And thankfully, my mother would whip me, and my father as well, if I came home with bad grades because we were afraid of being kicked out. I mean, I'm sure there's a grade situation that you could contemplate there. Now, let's say that you had a kid with a learning disability that transferred out of district. I think there would be special considerations made for that student. But then again, that student needs to be utilizing those extra tutors or whatever it is that learning plan suggests for that student. They need to be following that as well. I think some of that would be covered by existing state law, but I'd be open to, making sure that what we have in place now would help this process as well, as far as criteria.
All right, thank you. I think we all know that the zip code, that one last number, is what's really kind of keeping us strangled, and we really do need this issue addressed. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That clears the board there. I find it hard to believe you're an average student. We'll take testimony from the audience here. You're welcome to stick around, but I know you've got a busy schedule, so you're welcome to leave, and we'll keep you updated as to where we'd go with this bill here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If anybody needs to kiss up to him on his way out, you're welcome to do that. Josh Stevens, if you'd head up to the podium there, and team, I'm going to share this. We started at about 1:50. I'd like to get us out of here by top of the hour because we've got another committee meeting right after us. So
I'll be quick.
For those that are testifying, please try to keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. Bonus points.
Quicker than that.
All right.
But first of all, I want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing that today was Page Day on Capitol Hill, and we had a couple of members of your committee that actually spoke. And we appreciate y'all's time and spending time with educators and everyone that was able to speak with your teachers that were here under the Capitol. Thank you all for spending that time with them. We appreciate Representative Smith's commitment to ensuring that all students are well served by public schools. And we, as you hear us say on all school choice type bills, we always encourage transparency on these programs. So that's what we're doing today. We believe that there's an opportunity in this bill to provide transparency to parents that are choosing to have their students, if they transfer within these districts, that data, we're really just requesting simple data such as demographics and student information, information on the school districts that are actually affected. So just what type of, like we've already discussed, some of the financial reporting that Representative Wade brought up, and then finally any student outcome data. So we're talking testing scores and things like that for any students that are participating, just so parents that do choose have the ability to kind of see, hey, is this district that I'm actually transferring my student to, the students that participate in this program in that district, are they being served in the way that I would like for them to? So that's all I have. Thanks, sir.
Bonus points for Paige. Very quick, to the point. Stephanie Tanner, and then after Stephanie, we've got Terrence Wilson up next.
Hey, y'all. Stephanie Tanner from the Georgia School Boards Association. I, too, will try to be brief. So I do want to thank both the committee and Representative Smith for the openness and thoughtfulness with this bill. I think, you know, folks are hearing that families want options, so we understand y'all are listening to those concerns. I think while this isn't something we've discussed, we always echo calls for transparency, so we would echo that page presented around the annual reporting. But we have heard some concerns about forcing one school district to pay another and whether or not that is legal. We're currently looking into that. And then just thinking about, because GSBA must be a voice for all school districts, especially those that can't be down here. A lot of those lower wealth rural districts want to make sure we understand that this could be a lower wealth district that qualifies for equalization having to pay a higher wealth district. Now, we understand the equalization funds would not follow the student, but we just want to think about the repercussions, and we appreciated some of the commentary from Representative Wade. I think he understands this well as a former school board member, so I would defer to some of his comments as well. And then we do have a request, because we're concerned about forcing one school district to pay another potentially wealthier district. We respectfully request to remove the tuition penalty by striking lines 41 through 45. And that is it.
Was there a question? Representative Townsend, did you have a...
Earlier,
Sure.
but she can probably answer it. I appreciate you being here.
Of course.
Question for you. Isn't most of the demographic information you guys are requesting, we're all dealing with public schools, so it's not like it's not out there already. Wouldn't that just be duplicating what's already out there?
So, and I just said we respectfully always support transparency, but I think we can get all of that from Godot. I know I pretty easily got information on district transfers from the DOE today. So some of that, you know, like you said, I'm sure exists. I think they were just calling for one annual report. Is that correct?
And you can probably do it better than most people can. Can you explain, there's been always you hear budget discussions with the money traveling or whatever else. People, he mentioned the money traveling, just the state portion, not the local portion or whatever else.
Right.
Can you say that's true, not true? Can you explain that more in depth and Chairman Smith to kind of say that's exactly what they're proposing?
You want to say if I
No. Did you agree with what he said about how it's divvied up, I guess? What portion would be following the kid? What portion wouldn't be following the kid? Was that accurate in your?
I can't speak to that. I can definitely check on that because right now the process is different, and some school districts don't charge tuition for transfers and some do. But what our concern is, I understand I'm not necessarily answering your question, so I will ask about that, but we are concerned at just forcing one school to pay another of any of its funds. I mean, and then as Representative Smith said, I think there would be a local impact then, right?
Drawn down from the state.
He wants only the state funds to follow, but if we have the tuition penalty, I don't see how local funds don't follow.
Hold on, guys. I think it's yours.
Yeah, I just
Number
have a
9.
basic.
Yeah.
I just have a basic question. So, Chairman Smith said that it would be the state funds that would follow, and that's just the way it works right now. Anytime someone goes to a charter school, the state portion would follow, right? So that doesn't need to be stated in this bill, but this. Is that? I just want to say, is that correct? Is that okay? And then, but then, as she has pointed out, there is this extra money that would be paid by the
That's
the
our concern.
the sending school district.
Yep.
And that is a concern too for me.
Okay.
Let's go with the question number 6 down front here.
I think she answered the question.
Okay.
I was curious about the local. So there is local money being transferred.
With the
With this bill.
tuition penalty in lines 41 through 45.
And-
We don't see how, and that seemed to be what the author was alluding to, that there would be a local impact just for those schools in the lowest quartile, lowest performing quartile.
And that's okay so take Cobb and Marietta. Can Cobb, they each have their own millage. Cobb has one, Marietta has one that's slightly lower. Cobb County taxpayers, so they would take that Cobb County taxpayers' funds and send it to Marietta if a student went there, half of it? Is that what we're saying under this bill? The half, that part of that money would go, right?
So so you're saying if there were a student in Cobb County in that was in one of those schools that falls in the lowest performing quartile and they want to move to Marietta, the local dollars would have to pay half, as he said, of the tuition. So there's the state money and then there's the penalty. So
Okay.
I don't know how it would be calculated. That's what Representative Wade was trying to say. We might need some clarification for.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, let's do this. Thank you so much. Terrence, you're up next. After Terrence, we have Mason Goodwin and then Mr. O'Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hilton, members of the committee. Thank you for having me. My name is Terrence Wilson. I'm the Regional Policy and Community Engagement Director for IDRA. And we are also primarily concerned about the part of the bill that speaks to the lowest 25%. And specifically, with the whole process of having students move from in district to another, that's something that not all of our parents and families and students have the privilege to be able to do. As you know, in current law, it requires you to be able to provide transportation and to be able to pay, in some, not every district, but in most districts, some level of tuition. And so here in Georgia, especially in rural Georgia, we have a huge issue with the number of students and families living in poverty. 17% of Georgia's children live in poverty. Those numbers are much higher for students who are Black and Latino. And so we want to make sure that we're coming up with solutions that are going to serve the majority of students, right? There may be some small number of parents and students who may take advantage of this, but for the majority of students, especially if those students in some areas of our state have 40% to 80% of students living in poverty, so they're just not going to be able to take advantage of this. So we would hope that you would, instead of coming up with a solution like this, that we would instead focus on solutions to really help support under-resourced schools. And, specifically when we're talking about the bottom 25%, I don't know why this thing keeps going off on me. When we're talking about the bottom 25%, we know that oftentimes it's not a reflection of the leadership in the school, but more of the amount of resources. So if you look at the relationship between direct certification, or poverty and the accountability scores, you can see that schools that have lower levels of poverty do better on the test. And we do not believe that, or do better with the accountability scores, we should say. And so we don't believe that that's because our students that are experiencing poverty are less capable, but we do believe it's because we have not systematically invested in those school districts. And so although this may be good for some students and families, the majority of our students, especially of those living in poverty, would not be able to benefit from this. So we actually asked the committee to consider things that are already in place. There's been a bill that has been proposed by one of your colleagues, Representative Olalier, that would add a poverty weight to our school funding formula that would address some of the issues that those bottom 25% schools may be experiencing. And then also to focus on community-based collaborative strategies, work with those communities to understand what they need to support all of the students that are going to remain in the school district. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I don't see any questions right now. I'll invite Mason if you'd go ahead and come on up. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And I'll put a brief plug in here. A lot of talk about school performance. There's a great bill out there, House Bill 1186, by yours truly, about school performance scores. So check that out. Little plug. Mason, you're up, buddy.
Hey, appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Mason Goodwin. I'm with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition. We represent students both in the K-12 system and also in higher education. We just have two concerns. We're not against the actual intention of this bill. One is that local districts can already establish these relationships and contracts to move students throughout. They can decide how those funds move. They can decide whether or not the district can actually benefit that child when they move. So basically, this bill is bypassing that sort of local control that's already been established. Second concern is that movement of the funds, where we might be creating a situation where high wealth districts can then charge a low wealth district additional money. The low wealth district doesn't have enough funds to already support those kids in the bottom 25%. So then we're adding a burden on top of them when that kid leaves. So example of this could be like Clayton County, Fayetteville. Clayton County, lower wealth system, qualifies for equalization. Fayetteville has a ton of resources, as y'all probably know, especially if you get into the city schools. You got a kid that transfers from Clayton County to Fayetteville. From my understanding of this bill, is you're moving the QBE funds, which is how these contracts already are established on a local level when local district does decide to enter these contracts. So we're moving the QBE plus that tuition charge on top of it, which could be covered again by those local funds from the lower wealth system paying into the higher wealth system. Or it could be covered by something like equalization, which belongs in the lower wealth system, not the higher wealth system. So just the movement of the funds based off of what districts that this is applying to is just a concern that we have that could be solved, which is just crossing out the specific tuition moves. So that charge for the tuition, just cross that out of the bill. Or we could look specifically on a county level based off of how those funds move. But the other side of this is a lot of these students, this only allows a few students to get out of their district. The rest of those kids are still left in that low wealth, bottom 25% districts. So we'd like to also see solutions that may address all of those students. That could be direct funding for students living in poverty. I know DOE for the bottom 5% of schools is allowing more literacy coaches to answer that schools. That's going to help all of those kids, not just a few kids leave the districts. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mason. And Representative Glaze, I'm going to hold off on questions right now because we're toward the top of the hour, running out a little bit of time. Last and certainly not least, Mr. O'Sullivan, would you please entertain us?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Michael O'Sullivan, Executive Director of Georgia CAN. We advocate for student-centric policies across the education system. We support this bill and thank the author for bringing it. Just to cut to the chase, it's about kids and finding the best right opportunity for every child to succeed. And a bill like this, and any bill that lowers or eliminates any burden that might stand between a parent and a school that's going to work better is one that we should support. So with that, we support the bill and hope you do too.
Thank you. Short and sweet to the point. Well, committee, we have got a meeting directly after this. I am going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting and allow Bethany, Chairman Ballard here to go ahead and take on over. But very good discussion. What I'd love for y'all to do is connect with our bill author. There were some ideas in regards to amendments and potential changes. Please get with him because I think we'll probably be discussing this again in the near future. So thank you, everyone, and we are adjourned.
Okay, we're gonna get the room flipped and get started in 2 or 3 minutes. We'll get a sign-up sheet if I think it's already out there if y'all want to testify to either of the bills. Okay, 2-minute warning. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Curriculum Subcommittee to order. And at this time, I would like to call on Representative Maynor to open us in prayer. What number are you? 11. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Heavenly Father, thank you for providing this space for us to meet on behalf of the state of Georgia and its citizens today. May you just bless the room, the people in it. Give us the discernment to make choices for the children and the school systems within the state. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, I am going to turn the meeting over to my vice chairman, Chairman Chokus, and because I'm going to be presenting my bill, so I'm going to run down there to the front.
Help me with the podium. Cool. Our chair lady Ballard, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And this is HB 1027, and I've got LC 491804S. And what this bill would do is it would mandate that computer science be a class for high school graduation. It would be a graduation requirement. It would not add to the number of credits needed to graduate. It would be used in the place of one of their mathematics, an elective, a science. So it wouldn't be another burden on our students. It would be something that they will need, though, however, as they go forward in the world. Our world is not getting less technological. It is getting more so, and career fields that used to not need computer skills now need them. We see that even in our agriculture world with the smart agriculture that's out there. This bill would, we've tried to make it as easy as possible for our schools. It would allow for virtual instruction if there weren't enough teachers that in a district that could do computer science. And this would be, GTRI does a lot of training, and so they would have quality virtual instruction, so we don't need to worry about that. And this would go in the 27-28 school year, so it would give our schools, a good long bit of time to get their, what they need to do and get their ducks in a row, so to speak. So, very simply, all this does is say that our students need computer science and that we are making that a priority, just as we've made literacy a priority. Because if you think about it, computer science is literacy for the 21st century. Our kids are going to need this. And if I can just give a little anecdote, my son is an engineering major. And when I told him about this bill, he said, well, it's high time that the schools did this because I took some sciences that I don't think I needed, and this one everybody needs. And so that's from a freshman engineering major's point of view. So I think our kids will be excited. I think it will serve them well, and I will yield for questions.
All right, are there any questions? No questions, good. Well, we have, wait a minute, number 3, go ahead.
As far as cost is concerned, would this be an added instructor in the program for each school?
Well, right now, schools are already, they have to have computer science in the classroom, but this will make it a requirement. And I think that through the virtual option, I think the cost will be minimal because they can exercise that. But I think that our computer science departments in our schools, as kids request this more, I think that's going to grow organically anyway, because I think kids are going to be wanting this class. Okay. And the higher levels of it.
Cool. Are there any more questions? All right, hearing none. What I would like to do is have some of the people that want to speak on the bill to go ahead, if that's okay. And I think Anthony Owen, I think you're first.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Ballard, Vice Chairperson, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and thank you for your consideration of House Bill 1027. I'm just here to voice my support, share a bit about myself. My name is Anthony Owen. And I am honored to be not only Code.org's representative, but I'm also representing over 100 of the largest tech industries across the nation as the president of the National Computer Science Advocacy Coalition. This bill, as Representative did a much better job than I could do, would establish a graduation requirement for Georgia, supporting its economy and students. I will say this is not novel. There are already 8 states that have a CS graduation requirement, and Code.org is working with 16 currently that we're hoping before the end of the 2024 session. So this will put Georgia's students on the same playing field as already looking at half our other states across the nation. I want to also say, and just kind of speaking to something that Representative Ballard said, this again is not a novel concept. If you go back to 1983, A Nation at Risk, whenever we get what formulated our 4 math, our 3 science, our current graduation system across the nation, it recommended in 1983 that every student take a computer science course. So we're 40 plus years behind as a nation of what was seen back then that would be needed. Computer science plays an important role in our economy and the world around us. Ensuring all students that have access to foundational CS is critical. In Georgia in 2023, there was an average of over 16,000 open computing jobs with an average salary of $107,000 plus. CS is not just programming, so please do not start thinking that right now. CS is cybersecurity, it's robotics, it's game and application development, it's networking and hardware systems, and yes, even developing and maintaining artificial intelligence systems. Even though all these areas are under the umbrella, CS courses continue to be offered at far lower rates in small and rural schools. And I want you to know that of those 8 states that have passed a CS graduation requirement, those include Arkansas, Tennessee, and South Carolina. And I also want to share with you that Alabama, Arkansas, Maryland, and South Carolina are the only states that have more than 80% of small schools offering a CS. This is an access issue. Georgia is at 30% of roughly its 150 small schools. Contrast this to your large schools, which about 96% offer CS. And yes, there is a requirement that every high school in the state of Georgia will have to start offering a CS course, but we all know that sometimes that offer can be just a check mark. What we've seen in other states is that they offer 1 or 2 sections, no matter how many students want to sign up, and then they turn away every other student that might want it. Truth is, only some students are getting access, and that has to change. We can show you state after state where a CS grad requirement is the only way to truly provide every student access. While I'm happy to share additional data with you, I think my remaining time would be better served to share a personal story, and I'll be brief with this, but it provides an example of why your committee in Georgia should pass this legislation. I was a student in a small school district in southeast Arkansas. We didn't have a stoplight until I was in high school. At an early age, I was amazed and enthralled by the power and magic of computers. My family was not well off, so a computer was not something that would automatically be part of my household. By all state measures, I was an exceptional student, typically scoring above the 96th percentile in all subject areas, though English was sometimes slightly lower. However, I had a tendency to not get great conduct grades. I look back now and I know that I was a bit of a knucklehead. I was also bored with school. I was never in real serious trouble, but was often labeled the class clown. Our school, which also did not have a lot of resources, did have a computer lab. This computer lab was only accessible by the gifted and talented students. My academic grades and my state tests demonstrated that I had the aptitude to be in GT, but the director of GT would not let me in because of my conduct. So though the school had computers and taught computer science courses, I was not worthy in their eyes. My mother, and this story is about me. My mother, and I won't read it out to you, I'll just kind of give you the Cliff's Notes version. My mother saw the aptitude in me, saw the opportunity that it would provide. And though we did not have money, she went out and she got an old, it was actually a Tandy TRS 80 Model 4 computer running on BASIC and Fortran, and the books that went with it, and I taught myself computer science through that. Now, that has put me in a position where I built the Arkansas Computer Science Initiative under Governor Asa Hutchinson, which is the leading computer science initiative in the nation. I now work for a national entity, being president of a CS coalition that has some of the world's largest companies. I was a math teacher. I have my Juris Doctorate. What computer science did for me is it opened a world of opportunities. It wasn't the programming, it wasn't the basic, it was the problem solving, and it was the opportunities and the skills I developed. My school had computers and CS, but I was not worthy in their eyes. They looked at me and they saw difficulties, and you'll hear that today. It's difficult. And they said it would be too hard to provide me with that opportunity. My mother found a way to cultivate that. So I ask you, when considering your vote and the difficulties around changing a graduation requirement, before you vote no, think about the opportunities that Georgia students will not be able to take advantage of because they were found unworthy. Think about the long-term financial benefits their communities in your state will be missing out on because their school said it was too hard. I ask you to think about all these Georgia students who don't have a mother who can and will do what mine did. Pass this legislation to require every student in Georgia to get at least the basics in computer science, not just because they need it, but because they deserve the opportunities it brings. I encourage you to vote yes on House Bill 1027. It will make life better for all Georgians, even if it may make life temporarily more difficult for some adults and some schools. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Cool.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, could we limit our comments to about 5 minutes? Because there's a bunch of stuff going on getting ready for crossover day. Our next one is Tim Carroll with the Metro Chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Tim Carroll. I'm with the Metro Atlanta Chamber. First off, I'd like to thank Chairman Ballard for bringing this bill. We are in support of House Bill 1027. And thank you for working with the Department of Education and listening to concerns of industry. And I say that the Metro Atlanta Chamber works day to day with a number of companies across a variety of industries on everything from strengthening talent pipelines to expanding skills-based hiring, and especially into expanding educational partnerships, not just with higher education, but into K-12 as well. And this bill we see as paramount to the future of our students and their ability to enter the workforce. So we thank you for bringing this bill and ask for your favorable support. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the committee? Cool, thank you. Next up is Mason Rainey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mason Rainey with the Technology Association of Georgia, or TAG. We are a membership trade organization that represents over 1,000 tech companies throughout the state, as well as 30,000 individual members. I'll echo what my colleagues have already said here. We appreciate Chairwoman Ballard's work on this bill. We support this initiative. We fully support computer science education in our K through 12 system, and we ask for your favorable support. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Jody Reeves.
Good afternoon. I'm Jody Reeves, and I'm the Executive Director for the Georgia Association for Career and Technical Education, and we too support this. We did not support the original bill, but we were happy to see the sub that came out today, so thank you very much for your hard work on that. The members that we have in our association, we have about 2,600, and they range from superintendents to career tech teachers to school counselors, and a lot of our business communities also. Engaged with us as well. So we polled them and we got some feedback from them on the original bill, and it was not positive, but they were very happy to hear the sub and to see the sub come out. We too support computer science. I am a retired educator from Gwinnett County. I was at the system a system level, and we implemented a Computer Science for All initiative, and it's continuing to move forward, and we're very excited about the movement that's happening with computer science and all of our students. I just want you to know that the Georgia Department of Education and our schools have done a great job of implementing computer science. In 2018, only 52,000 students in the state of Georgia took advantage of any type of computer science training. In 2013, it was 217,900. So the tremendous growth that's happened is a credit to our state and to the work that's being done in all of our schools, and we hope to see that continuing. One thing I would like to see us to focus on is a K-8 initiative and more of a systemic initiative around computer science instead of just requiring a mandate. But we are happy and we're thankful that we are all in this work together to continue to support the literacy of all of our students. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. It's Dr. Robert Costley. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committees. And it's Mr. just for the record. My name is Robert Costley, and I represent the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders. And ironically, as I've shared with the author, who's been great to work with us, I am the father of a computer science engineer and a 2019 graduate from the Georgia Institute of Technology, which was hard on his dad because he is a dog fan. Go Jackets. There you go. Yes, sir. They paid for my son's education, so go Jackets. Yes, sir. But we share a story in common, and I will try to stick to your time period, sir. My son wanted to take computer science and was already coding as a young teenager on his own. I don't know to this day how he learned it. And so he took the Georgia Virtual School course in AP Computer Science and received credit. And that was good for him because he was the kind of student who could take online learning and benefit from it. He was just self-directed, et cetera. So I tell you that because I'm a proud dad and a proud supporter and a proud former superintendent, and computer science is a wonderful, necessary piece of our economic development in Georgia. So we are not opposed to the spirit of this bill, or especially not opposed to computer science in the state of Georgia. However, because we're the people, we're the leaders, and we're the ones that do the master schedules and the logistics, your people, your members, my members, your people, have shared some feedback that we'd just like you to consider. We think the bill could use some additional work to make sure that once it's passed, in that spirit, that it benefits. Here are a couple of the issues that we have. One is that the author, Representative Ballard, Vice Chairman Ballard, has added some flexibility by allowing some CTAE with embedded computer science. That helps. But what we run into is an issue, and that is math, ironically, because we're talking about math in a way, is if a high school has, say, 1,500 spots, and we say all students must complete this course to get a diploma, we know our kids, they're going to be rushing trying to get that course, get it taken care of. Some of them will be excited about it, and some students are not passionate about computer science, will never pursue that degree, and perhaps would rather pursue one of the governor's other higher need workforce areas that, in his package. The issue that we have is because we have to get those 1,500 people in 1,500 seats in 4 years. If a teacher teaches 170 kids a year times 4 years, that's about 800 kids or so. I know my math is off. I'm an English teacher, but if a high school with 1,500 kids can only get 800 kids through in 4 full years, that could create a strain. Of course, you add O-line to that, and we appreciate the flexibility, which was not in the previous bill, but that's our point. The original bill was trying to avoid virtual instruction because not all of us have a great taste in our mouths in the last 2 or 3 years about the quality of virtual instruction. If we say to the kids, I'm sorry I don't have a live teacher, I can't go find another computer science teacher live, we'd have to hire another one just to fill those spots, I'm going to put you in an online course that may or not be the quality that we want to satisfy a law rather than what they feel is best for their education or what they think is best for them, then I don't think that accomplishes our objective, because we're going to have kids that we want fired up about science and computer science and math, feeling that they're placed in an online course that a school system without a teacher didn't want to take and wasn't really excited about, or maybe just had low quality. Our suggestion is this. I shared my personal story, which I rarely do, because to let you know we're not opposed to the spirit of this bill, and we do believe the economic development of this state depends on pursuit and advance of science, not just computer science, but we may be obsolete. Artificial intelligence is about to change everything, but there's other high needs areas that the governor has highlighted for us as well. Could we perhaps work on the bill and increase participation, or use earlier testimony and find ways to embed that K-8 so that we're not trying to create a funnel and a kind of a clog in the system where your people, I'm talking about your teachers and your principals, want to do a good job for you, but they're given a bill that might be difficult to actually implement and make you proud. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, we've got one more, Joseph Barrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Chokas, Representative Ballard, all of our committee. My name is Joseph Barrow. I'm the Deputy Director for the Georgia School Superintendents Association, and Buddy Costley, he stole most of what I wanted to share with you. I will say this, as a retired superintendent from Fayette County, we were one of the first school districts when the State Department came out and said we need to offer computer science. We were one of the first districts to implement that. We have a lot of, had a lot of partnerships with Georgia Tech Research Institute, GTRI, very, very supportive of it. I can tell you from a practitioner's point of view, hiring computer science teachers was a real stretch. And we don't want to just offer a computer science course in name only. We really want it to be high quality course offerings. That's one of the concerns. Hopefully with more students taking computer science, clearly Georgia is one of the tech hubs in the southeastern United States, and that's really something that we're proud of. I do agree with what Mr. Costley said in that there are a lot of things shifting very, very rapidly in the world of technology with AI stepping up. I heard a statewide presentation and a national presentation just this past week about how that's going to begin to fill in a lot of the gaps for computer science. The AI is going to be able to do much of that. I don't want to see other courses from a liberal arts perspective. You're talking about CTAE courses, fine arts courses, those kinds of things. Depending upon what type of scheduling model a school district has, whether it's a 6-period day, 7-period day, AB block, 4x4 block, you know, everybody's got a different kind of scheduling model. And I do think that we need to take that into consideration. Some of our students, while we're not adding to the total number of graduation requirements, it may cause them to take and make choices that they may have to make because this is now becoming a required course. I want us to continue to grow computer science. We're very, very supportive of computer science as a content area. We certainly hope, and I didn't see the sub until today, and it's much, much better. We're very supportive of that. We appreciate that. We'd like to continue to work with the author if we have that luxury. And thank you for your opportunity to express our opinion.
You've got a question? No? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. Hold on. Question to the author, number 15. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Ballard, if I could, just to clarify one quick point. I understand that we're not increasing the number of graduation requirements, correct?
Correct.
We are saying that that this would take the place, and I'm not going to read all these, but starting on line 80, we talk about 1 unit of graduation credit, and we outline how you could obtain that. So
yes.
This is nothing new. This would be, if you will, in place of something that's existing. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to discuss a motion and a friendly amendment.
All right. It looks like this is the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that, let me get my numbers back. I move that House Bill 1027 do pass.
All right, there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and again, working with the bill author for a friendly amendment here, if I could direct everyone's attention to line 65. In the middle of this sentence, it says, as a condition of graduation from high school, and the Dubnik amendment would be to add the following 7 words: with a regular or accelerated career diploma. So as a condition of graduation from high school with a regular or accelerated career diploma.
Yes, that sounds perfect.
Okay. Mr.
Is there a second for the Dubnik amendment? Second. There is a second. Any discussion for the amendment?
Can you explain that?
Hold on. Push your button.
Yes, can you explain that, the amendment, when you said a regular or accelerated diploma?
Representative, yes, sir. Happy to do so. Thank you for the question. Really just trying to stay consistent with some language that we have elsewhere about graduation and not giving any false language here that could indicate that this is in any way bypassing a current type of diploma that could be obtained, which is certainly not my intention with the amendment, and I will not speak for the bill author, but I do not believe that would be her intent either.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now, members of the committee, let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Like sign? All right, the amendment passes. Now on to the main motion. All right, amendment passes, no further discussion. All right, all those in favor of the main motion as amended by the Dubnik amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Cool.
Now we play musical chairs again. Okay, so now we are moving on to House Bill 822. And Representative Carpenter, if you would like to go down there and present your bill.
It's been a pleasure to be an ex officio member of your committee.
We've enjoyed having you.
And for the record, I'm a big fan of computer science, so that's exciting. Appreciate what you're doing there. All right, so I come before you again with House Bill 822. After our first hearing on the bill, we had some conversations with Frontline about some issues on the consent piece. And so what you see in front of you, LC 491817S, hopefully address those issues on line 23. I think everything else in the bill stayed the same. But we just basically wanted to, instead of saying consent, we changed it to instruction relating to the significance of personal boundaries and responsibilities in relationships. So that's some language that refers to some certain programs in sex ed categories. Obviously, we're not trying to change the world here. We're just trying to update Georgia code to make sure our kids are learning medically accurate, age appropriate sex education, and we didn't want people to feel like we were doing something nefarious or trying to, as a father of 4, trying to mess things up for kids in the state of Georgia. We were just trying to educate kids. So I will yield for any questions or discuss whatever you want to discuss, but I think everything else was covered in that last meeting.
Representative Maynor.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the last meeting.
And you didn't go back and watch the video? It was so fabulous.
So, quick question. Right now, HIV education is not included in current sex education.
That's correct. We just haven't updated our code to reflect what's actually going on, right? It's listed as AIDS now, and obviously we all know that it's HIV is more appropriate. So that's just updating that piece of the code, getting Georgia 25, 30 years on down the road.
Thank you. As a former speechwriter for the Assistant U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Helene Gill, when she was at CDC, working in the HIV/AIDS division, Georgia clearly has a problem with the rate of people that have HIV and AIDS, and so I think this is highly appropriate. Thank you for the bill.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a concern for all of us, and it's a tough subject. People don't want to touch it. You know, it's taboo in the state of Georgia, and I understand it, but I think, we got to get our head out of the sand and realize what's really going on, and have those tough conversations. Because as a parent of 4, we have tough conversations all the time, but not everybody has 2 parents at home that have the time to do so. So I think that's why it's important.
And if I can follow up, this is related and not related. So in the Midtown area that I represent, I was driving around and there was a huge billboard that was a syphilis billboard. And so I told my girls, I said, okay, this is odd. For this billboard to be here, that means there must be some sort of syphilis outbreak. People are not just putting up syphilis billboards in the middle of Midtown Atlanta, spending thousands of dollars for nothing. And then literally a few months later, it came out that there is an increased rate of syphilis. So any opportunity that we can to educate children on practicing safe sex is highly important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's when we say getting your head out of the sand, that's what we're talking about. I think there's issues with gonorrhea around the state. STIs are real, and they're on the uptrend. And unfortunately, kids are getting information, but they're not getting good information a lot of times. And so I think it's important.
Okay, I have a question, just because this has been asked of me a couple of times. So I'm going to pass this question on to you. Help us define, and I'm looking in line 22, although it's in several lines in your bill. Let's talk about age appropriate and medically accurate. How are those defined, and who is doing the defining, and how do we, what do those things mean in the context of your bill?
Sure. So the locals, I think, will decide what they deem appropriate from medically accurate and age appropriate, especially the age appropriate piece. I think the medically accurate, I hope that we're listening to our doctors and we're hearing what's said. Georgia, there's 18 other states that have medically accurate in their code. Tennessee's one, Alabama's one. I mean, these are states that are around us, and it's not that they're teaching all these things that people are going to say they're trying to teach. It's literally just making sure we're updating our, like the HIV piece, we're actually having conversation about what's going on out there, what's available, what options are. With obviously emphasis on abstinence is the safest and best manner, which is still in code. But, if that is not the route you choose, I think you need a little more information. And I think you can see, I don't know if you have the handout with you, but 54% of students have sex before they graduate high school. 90% of people do not wait until they get married to have sex. So we have to be cognizant of that, the trends, and making sure we're preventing syphilis, gonorrhea, et cetera.
I would help if I turned my mic on. Thank you, Representative Carpenter. And I think we have one person who has signed up to speak about this, Mary Clausen. You can come back and sit with us.
Yeah, I'll join the committee for a minute. Check them up there. Yeah, don't go that.
Yeah, you can't jump.
It's the most impossible place.
In another room, there's a cut through right there in another committee room we have. So.
I apologize. I didn't have time to prepare it really professionally just because I just found out about this. I think last night is when I noticed it was on the schedule. So I apologize for that. My name is Mary Clausen. I'm a licensed registered nurse with a master's degree and a family nurse practitioner in the state of Georgia. I have been trained to read studies, research, information, and I've not been impressed with the way it's been presented through the GCAP literature. I've gone to several of their things. I've seen the things they've given about this House Bill 822, and 822, and the graphs, the flow charts. There's no data to support it. Is there a trick to this? Just old. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to tell you is because abstinence is in the code does not mean that's all that the kids are learning. Abstinence only does not exist in sex education. Abstinence only is a fear tactic that makes people think that we're keeping our kids in the closet and not teaching them anything. That is not true. Sexual risk avoidance are abstinence encouraged programs that tell kids that's the healthiest thing for them. And the studies show it. I've got a mass analysis. I've sent you guys tons of emails today, and I apologize for the last minute, but there's a huge comprehensive analysis about the comprehensive sex education, how that is not effective. And it's kind of common sense. If you think about it, the more we encourage children and teenagers to have sex, and they're not encouraged, like people aren't saying, go do this, but because of all the information that's being shared, that's what the kids are hearing. And there's a Planned Parenthood, a sex educator named Monica Klein, look her up on Facebook. She was going with Planned Parenthood, educating these kids all the time, thought she was doing a great job with all this stuff, and she got into classrooms and realized that these kids were telling her, 8th graders, you guys expect us to be doing this, right? That's why you're telling us all this information. So we have to remember, kids have learned about sex, teens have heard about sex, adults have learned about it for thousands of years. We've only had sex ed for the past, 60 years maybe. And what's happened? More and more sex, more and more sexually transmitted diseases. So not that they shouldn't learn about protecting themselves and birth control, but we have to think about the way it is being presented. The other thing is that most teens are having sex as a false belief. 2/3 of high school students in the U.S. are not currently sexually active. And most students, 52%, have never had sexual intercourse. And I've got the documentation to show you that. The age appropriateness, that sounds great, but if you have a 5th grader who possibly has questions about sexual things, it's age appropriate. If they're questioning, let's just say their sexual gender identity, if they're questioning that, there are kids at all ages that are having all kinds of experiences and all kinds of feelings. But that doesn't mean that all of the kids should get all that information, and that's kind of what age appropriateness in there does. GCAP, all over their website, medically accurate. I'm a nurse practitioner. I guarantee you in my license it doesn't say, are you giving medically accurate care? Of course I am. I'm a professional. That's what I do. Teachers have a professional license. They're supposed to give accurate information. But they're buzzwords for comprehensive sex education. So I hope you guys look through all the stuff that I've sent you. The HIV stuff is important, but there's also stuff about boundaries and personal issues in there too that is concerns me. That kind of is about consent. When you're talking about personal boundaries, that happens. So let me just give you a few stats, and I know you guys had a long day. The goal is to teach them about birth control and STD prevention. Condoms, as we know, 13% are ineffective. Oral contraceptives with actual use, 7% are ineffective. So even though 93% sounds great for oral contraceptives, but if you have 500,000 high school kids in Georgia right now, half of them have had sex, 250,000. If they use condoms, they're ineffective, they get STDs. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of pregnancies and STDs and things. So again, some are going to do that, and we need to teach them. Gonorrhea is becoming increasingly drug resistant, and the CDC is calling it an urgent health threat. So I don't know about the syphilis, I think that's going up too, but gonorrhea is also a huge problem. So I'm sorry, again, I didn't get this very professionally presented. There's lots of data in there. I hope you guys read it. And I hope that you just pause on this and let us give you all the information like GCAP has been able to do. They've had lots of time. Nobody's called us and asked us our opinion about this. I mean, this is what we do. There's a national coalition called Protect Child Health Coalition that I'm a member of. And there's people all over the country. This is going down California law. California's laws has medically accurate and age appropriate. They also have other advanced things, but GCAP's goal is to get a few things in there. The next year, they're going to ask for a few other things, and the next year, a few other things. And pretty soon, we're going to look like California. And we don't want to be having, fifth graders learning the things that they want to teach them in California. Any questions for me?
Thank you. I do have one, and I might have missed it as I was shuffling my papers. Are you here on behalf of a group? Do you lobby on behalf of a group?
I don't really lobby. I'm just a volunteer mom and nurse.
Okay.
We kind of made a little group ourselves. It's called Protect Student Health Georgia. The people that do the same thing that I do, that kind of learned about this stuff and thought, we need to kind of get some information out there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Carpenter.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is procedure for, let me ask a question, but I see your handout, and I just don't know. I understand what you're saying, but I just don't know how the legislation as presented would not allow SRA to occur. I think that it would. I'm not, I don't read anything in the bill in front of you guys that would say what she's suggesting is sexual risk avoidance can't be taught. To me, it's saying, as long as it's all the things she's saying, teen sex is risk behavior, even with contraception and consent. That's medically accurate. So I understand the concern that we're opening a Pandora's box, and I would challenge you that allowing the locals, leaving abstinence in the code and allowing the locals to control what happens in their school district will protect children, but make sure that we're getting up to date and doing what we're supposed to do to make sure kids know what's going on.
I think it's going to be interpreted in different ways. I definitely respect that, Representative Carpenter. When you look at all the data, though, the data that shows the two different types of programs that are out there, some stuff overlaps. An example would be a 7th grade health education class in Georgia. The teacher started it with, you can have sex one of 3 ways, O, A, and V. I'm not going to say what the words are just because I don't feel like doing that. But, and that's true. That is medically accurate information. But that's not the way you present it to 8th grade, actually a 7th grader. So it'd be like a 12-year-old kid. That's not how you present it to them. So it's a what is the big foundation of how you want to do it. So the comprehensive educations, GCAP has said that their bread and butter is comprehensive sex ed. I mean, that's where they get their money, that's where they get the grants, because that's what our society has over-sexualized our children. And so we have to take it back. The graphs I've sent you show counties that have comprehensive sex ed and counties that have sexual risk avoidance, and the sexual risk avoidance has less STDs, pregnancy, etc. So the studies show right here in Georgia, I'll show them to you, their studies are not accurate. They say the wise counties, there's 12 wise counties which have the comprehensive sex ed, and they have the non-wise counties that have the abstinence-based programs. In the wise counties, they have Fulton County. Well, Fulton County has Fulton County Schools, which is abstinence-based program, choosing the best, and they also have Atlanta Public Schools, which has comprehensive sex ed. So it's misleading. I've asked for the data on those graphs that you have right there, and they haven't sent it to me. I'm like, how many people, how did you do this? What were the results? Studies are done scientifically. You have a review of the literature, you have methodology, what's your research design? How do you present the data? What's the data that you found? What is the summary, implications? A lot of health things, I mean, I don't know, to kind of go to what you said, Representative Carpenter, what program in Georgia that has, that doesn't have medically accurate sex education. You know, it's like, why does it have to be in there? You know, it's because some people, the schools, the universities, there's 100 programs out there with master's degree in human sexuality and gender studies. Okay, there's no master's degrees in absence-based education and family staying together. There's no master's in that. So a lot of the data out there in the little studies makes it look like this is a good thing. Somebody's writing their thesis, but that's not. There's no one writing a thesis about the SRA programs. So I'm just telling you, it's skewed, and the data is not accurate. And until you know if that is needed, I wouldn't vote for the bill.
Representative Maynor. And I'm just going to say we have 12 minutes left in this room.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the speaker, and then at the appropriate time, a motion do pass. Question for the speaker. You said that some local school systems have not given you information you requested. Did you do that?
Not local systems, GCAP.
Okay.
I've emailed their research person and also their director, and I've not got that. I've sent you a copy. It'll be in your mailbox.
Okay.
What I asked for.
But just want to make sure you knew, and then also for the listeners, anybody in the public, if they're trying to get information from an agency, they should go through the Open Records
Yeah,
Act.
well aware of that. But organizations like that, they don't have open records there. So I've asked, and if you guys could send me what you've gotten, that would help me too, to see what information is being shared, because I'm at the table, so I'm just kind of guessing as to what you all know.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions.
Thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
Okay, Representative Maynor.
Motion do pass.
Okay, we have a motion do pass. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, shall this bill now pass? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, you are on to full.
Thank you. I think I have some language I might try to send you to.
Okay. Okay. And we are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming. And I know that we kept y'all late today, but we appreciate y'all hanging with